following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Hello, everyone. This is Rob Deininger with Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and I'm here with Jack Degraw, and we are talking Yankees baseball. How you doing, Jack?
Good. How are you today, Robert?
I'm not too bad. Yankees just took game one of their doubleheader with the Tigers.
Yeah, I seen they won 10-4, and Encarnacion hit a homer, and Voit had a homer, and you were telling me something about Encarnacion.
Yeah, apparently he hurt his oblique, and they're going to send him back to New York for tests. So he could be out for a little while, or quite some time. And oblique muscle takes a long time to heal from, so hopefully it's not too serious.
Well, it's just one of the many injuries this season, and it seems like there'll be a few more. And, we were talking off air how Stanton's down here in Tampa, and he's been playing simulated games, and, he's been getting 4 or 5 at-bats a day. Of course, it ain't against Major League curveballs and stuff, so there's a chance he could be back next week. Yeah,
because, listening to sports radio up here, a lot of people don't even want Stanton on the playoff roster. They rather have Talkman or someone, but Talkman's been struggling a little bit of late, I think.
Well, Robert, he got hurt the other day.
Oh, did he? Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think he's out for the rest of the season. He's out for the playoffs. So there's a decision they don't have to make. So they got Maben back and Frazier's up, and they could get Stanton back. But like we were mentioning, he comes back. How many at bats is he going to get? Major League at bats for the playoffs, 40 or 50 at bats. So that could be a. I really don't know if you want him in the lineup. I mean, he's a great player, but is he ready to perform?
True. It's going to be a judgment call, I guess, by Boone. If he's not hitting, you got to put someone else in there who is, because it takes a good 100 at-bats in the major leagues when you come back to get into the groove of things, really.
Yeah, because, he's down here hitting against minor league guys, low A guys, rookie league pitchers. They can throw 95, 100 miles an hour, but you're not facing, the curveballs, the splits, the sinkers, the sliders. It's a whole different thing. So I guess he might come back next week against the Angels, but, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and it's a shame. Encarnacion in his last 5 games, he was batting over 290 with 2 homers and 6 RBIs. He was a nice bat to have in that lineup. Yeah,
he come off the injured list, and he's really been, very productive. So that's a big loss going into the playoffs.
Yeah, and the guy who keeps surprising me this year, other than DJ LeMahieu, is Gleyber Torres. He's got 36 home runs on the year.
Yeah, we talk about it every week. He just gets better all the time. And could you imagine? You got a second baseman of 22 years old. He might hit 40 home runs this year.
Yeah, I remember the days when Ryan Sandberg was considered a great offensive second baseman, which he was. But to have a guy hitting 36 home runs, that's pretty impressive for a young guy.
Yeah, it's just amazing how, over the years, the second baseman and the shortstops have gotten so good offensively. I remember back in the late 60s and the early 70s, if a guy had a handful of homers and 40, 50 RBIs and hit 250, you were satisfied. But now these guys are, the big sluggers on the team, and, Torres isn't really that big, so that's incredible what he's doing.
Yeah, and I think he was someone who they projected to be a 20 to 25 home run type of guy. So this is really impressive what he's doing.
Yeah, he's really been driving the ball to all fields, and what a player they got. And you want to talk about some of the pitchers, Robert? On the injured list.
Yeah, which is some good news. Severino, he's going to rejoin the Yankees in Toronto, but he's going to make a start Tuesday against the Angels. And also we got Montgomery who's coming back, and he'll start Sunday against Toronto.
Yeah, Montgomery pitched Tuesday in Double-A, and Severino pitched Wednesday in Double-A. The Trenton team is in the finals. They're tied 1-1 with the Oriole farm team. But Montgomery pitched Tuesday. He pitched 3 innings. He gave up 1 earned run. He threw 50 pitches. And Severino threw on Wednesday, and he pitched 3 2/3 innings. He gave up 4 runs, but only 1 was earned, and he threw 64 pitches. So I think Montgomery's going to pitch Sunday in Toronto, and Severino's supposed to pitch Tuesday against the Angels in the stadium.
Yeah, and also Betances, I saw today, he's going to make another start or another appearance Friday in the minor leagues and then rejoin the Yankees.
Yeah, he's had 2 1-inning he's been out 2 appearances. He threw 19 pitches 1 inning, 20 pitches the other. He hasn't given up any runs. He's got like 4 strikeouts, and he's hit like 93, 94 on the radar gun. I mean, over in the spring training, he was only hitting 91, 92, so the velocity's not there. But since he's only thrown a couple innings, I don't really think you can expect it to be 98, 100 miles per hour.
It'd be a great addition to have in the back of the bullpen, another arm for the postseason. Someone, even if you're just bringing him in for a batter or 2.
Yeah, hopefully, he can get some work in, and I'm sure he can. And another thing, they brought up Ben Heller, and he pitched today in the Yankees win over the Tigers. So there's another
right. Aaron Judge just hit a 2-run home run for the Yankees. They're up 2-0. Yeah, and he gets swinging. That's a good sign. He hit it to right
really
center.
Picking it up lately. Yeah, they got. Sorry, Robert. Go ahead.
Oh, he's got his average creeping up a little bit. He's up around 275 now with 22 home runs and 49 RBIs.
Did he drive the ball to left field?
It was more towards right center, but he belted it.
I think CeCe's pitching, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah. It's still top of the first.
Because there was a report today, like Boone was saying, for the playoffs, the Yankees might, they might have like Severino pitch 3 innings, and then, Chad Green, and it happens, so they might, go that route. I mean, and I think now if you start the playoffs, you might have to have Paxton start the first game. Yeah,
and speaking of Green, he started today, and it seems every time they start him as an opener, they win. I think there's something like 11, 12-0 when he starts a game.
Well, there's a good possibility, you might see him, start a playoff game. And, you could have him pitch an inning or 2, and then you could bring in Severino, maybe Montgomery. So we'll have to see how it, plays out.
But you're right about Paxton. I mean, he's been pitching really well. In his last 5 starts, he's 5-0 with a 2.37 ERA.
Yeah, and another guy who's done well is Happ. He was struggling a month ago, but I think he's had a streak of like almost 20 innings without giving up a run. It got broken today, but he's got himself at least back in the conversation.
Yeah, and his last 5 starts, he's 3-1 with a 3.42 ERA, but he's the hits are down, the runs are down, the walks are down, the strikeouts are up, and so yeah, he's been pitching better of late. And
I know Herman's been struggling a little bit. I think he's going to come in today after CeCe. So there's another thing. They might be grooming him, to pitch later in the games for the playoffs.
Yeah, Herman, his last 5 games, he's 2-2, but he's got an ERA of almost 5, and he's given up 25 hits, 16 runs, and 27 innings.
Well, like we were saying a month ago, this is the most innings he's ever pitched, by quite a bit. So
Yeah.
I think he might be tiring out a little bit.
And with the playoffs coming up soon, can you see them switching, like having DJ LeMahieu playing first and Urshela at third, and then another game LeMahieu at third and Voit at first?
Yeah, that's a good possibility. With the way the Yankees, everybody seems to get hurt. I think you never know what's going to happen. But I think, regardless, you have to have LeMahieu's bat in the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah, he's unbelievable.
And, not only he's had a great year hitting-wise, fielding-wise, he's excellent. He can play. He does a great job at second, third, and he even does a nice job at first, even though he doesn't have, a lot of experience over there.
Yeah, he's batting over 320 on the year. He's got 24 home runs, 91 RBIs. He's close to 200 hits. He's just – I know he won a batting title, but, I didn't know he was this good of a player coming from Colorado.
Well, the thing is, when teams like Colorado, they haven't had a lot of success and they play like a lot of their games, late, you don't hear about them much, out east. And so you really don't know how good a guy is because you really don't get much of a chance to see him play.
And the one guy that everyone's completely forgotten about is Miguel Andujar. Even though he's not going to be with us this year, next year he'll be back. He was a heck of a talent. They're going to have a logjam in the infield next year with Urshela, LeMahieu, and Andujar back. They might have to make a move or two.
Yeah, I think, they'll have some trade chips, in the off season. If you're not going to play Andujar that much, there's no sense of having him even on the roster. And the same thing with Frazier. If you're just going to have him go up and down from AAA, it's like, what's the point of that? There's nothing more they can prove in the minor leagues.
Yeah, and Frazier hasn't gotten that many at bats since he's been up here with them, has he?
No, he played the first game, and I seen, he struck out. I don't think he's hitting really well, but of course, like you say, he hasn't had many at bats.
Yeah, he's played in 5 games. He's had 10 at bats and only 1 hit. So he hasn't had that many at bats.
That's a possibility too when you come to the playoffs. Are you going to keep, Frazier on the roster, or are you going to put Maben on the roster? So that's one of the things to look for. That's another decision the Yanks got to make. Yeah,
I forget about Maben, and he was a nice pickup for the Yankees.
Yeah, that was just a move. They needed an outfielder, and he stepped in and he's just played. Outstanding. So, even if he don't stick with the Yankees for next season, I think he's revived his career, and this will give him another few seasons in the big leagues. But he's been a big pickup. He can cover ground in the outfield. He's hit really well. So that was a big acquisition.
And I heard someone say if Stanton's not available for the postseason and Tauchman's out, that maybe one of the better options would be Tyler Wade, since he's good defensively, especially in the infield, but he also can play a little bit of the outfield.
Yeah, Wade's a very versatile player. He's an excellent infielder. He's got a great glove, and he does a decent job in the outfield. Another thing, he brings a lot of speed to your team.
Yeah.
He's very athletic, and he seemed to have hit a little better, when he gets some regular playing time. So, that's a good player to have, because he can play all over.
And 10 games this year, he's batting 300.
Yeah, I know since they brought him back, I think the other night he played right field, and I don't know if he's ever played right field before. So, there's another option.
Yeah, because a couple of years ago, they were talking about Wade as a super utility guy, sort of like Ben Zobrist for the Chicago Cubs a couple of years ago.
Well, he could develop in that. He's got the talent. The only question is, it's been his bat, and it's hard to really hit well when you've only, you get inconsistent at bats. So,
yeah,
we'll see how he plays the last 2 weeks. I'm sure he'll get an opportunity.
And the Yankees took 3 out of 4 from Boston.
Yeah, they went up there, and they the Red Sox got eliminated.
Yeah.
And they actually fired their GM too, Dombrowski.
Yeah.
So I don't. Go ahead, Robert. Sorry.
He gave big contracts to Sale, David Price, and I forget there's another player too. But I mean, I was surprised by the move of them firing him, considering they won the World Series last year.
Well, that's one of the things. You remember when the Yankees were, they signed CC and they signed Teixeira and they gave A-Rod an extension like 2009. I mean, you win the World Series, which, that's what you're in the business for. But I mean, if you don't give these guys big money, they'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think that's one of Boston's problems right now is they're way over the luxury tax. I mean, they couldn't even re-sign Kimbrel. He's one of the best closers in baseball the last few years. They couldn't re-sign him, and a lot of the players on this team are making a lot of money.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like, Chris Sale's going, downhill. He was a great pitcher. David Price in his prime was a great pitcher, and he don't seem to be anywhere near what he used to be. So,
yeah, he's making like $30 million or more a year with Boston.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a nice record up there, but the injuries are starting to take its toll. Yeah,
and for the wild card, Tampa Bay has a second wild card spot. Oakland has the number 1 spot, and the only other team that's fighting for the wild card really is the Indians, who are a half game back. But other than Cleveland, there's really no one else there to fighting for the wild card. It's just a 3-team race, really.
Well, I know that the Rays lost last night, but before that they had won like 11 out of 12. And Oakland's playing good, and the Indians are, hanging right in there. Minnesota, we always talk about the Yankees and the Astros. When they get in the playoffs, teams like Minnesota, Oakland, Tampa Bay, or Cleveland, any one of those teams, they could play the Yankees and or the Astros, and they could beat them because these teams are playing outstanding baseball. I mean, they're going to wind up with like 95 or so wins. So, the Yankees and the Astros might not even happen if, they don't play good ball in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Oakland, they got 86 wins. Tampa's got 87. Cleveland has 86. So, yeah, all these teams are going to have over 90 wins this year.
Yeah, so, I mean, whoever – it's usually one of the playoff teams gets in, maybe they got 88 wins, 89, and they're not as strong as the other team. But no matter who you play in the playoffs now, I mean, they've had to play well to get there. And so it's going to be, it's going to be exciting because you got a lot of quality teams.
Yeah, and the Yankees' schedule, they got, of course, Detroit right now, but then they got 3 with Toronto, 3 with the Angels, and then 3 more with Toronto, and 2 with Tampa, and they finish up with 3 with Texas. Yeah,
I mean, well, the interesting thing to me is to see how Montgomery does and Severino does, and, if Stanton comes back and Betances, a lot of those teams you're playing are, they're just playing out the schedule except for the Rays. So I think Severino will get 3 starts. Montgomery might get 4, and we'll see how many bats Stanton gets. So, the last 2 weeks it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. Yeah, I mean, Montgomery, his rookie year, I think he led all rookies with strikeouts with 144. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, if he how he does in his last few starts, if he's an option for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because you don't know if what CC, you don't know if you're going to have him on a playoff roster because, today's a big game for him because you don't know if he has anything left.
Yeah, I think he got through the first inning, but they were all fly balls pretty much. There's 2 deep fly balls. His pitches look to be a little bit up in the zone. So it'll be interesting to see how he finishes today, see if he can get through 4 or 5 innings without, putting up too much damage. But I think he's on his last leg, literally.
Yeah. I mean the three previous starts, I think he pitched maybe 10 innings. So he's had a great career, but he's just hanging by a thread now.
Yeah. And I think you might be right with Paxton starting game 1 and maybe Tanaka game 2 and Severino with a couple other pitchers for game 3. Unless they go with Herman for game 3.
Yeah, and right now, there's some questions about Tanaka. Tanaka's had some good, playoff games, but out of all the seasons with the Yankees, this has probably been his his worst season because it just doesn't seem he's been able to get any consistency. So, his last few starts, you really have to watch him too.
Yeah, because he's 10-8 on the season, and his ERA is over 4.5. He's been really inconsistent. Yeah,
so there's a possibility, he might not start till the third game. So, the last few weeks, are going to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Haps, his record now is 13-6. And he could get add 2 more wins maybe and finish with 15 wins on the season.
Yeah, he's been a much better pitcher lately. Like I said before, I think he had a scoreless streak of 19, 20 innings. So he seems to got back into the mix. He's mixing up his pitches better. He's not getting hurt by the long ball. So, there's another option right there.
Yeah, and Montgomery is, to me, like a wild card because he has, I think, 5 different pitches, and if he can be effective, he could be a nice option coming out of the bullpen at least.
Yeah, if he the last game in minors he threw 50 pitches, so if you can get him up to 60, 65, then he could possibly throw 4 or 5 innings. Severino threw 64 pitches the last time, so maybe he can give you 4 or 5 innings too.
Yeah, and Heller, he'll be on the postseason roster, right? You would think.
That's pretty much up in the air. I think it'll come down maybe to him and Betances, and Heller, has pitched more innings. He's been pitching for over a month in the AAA, and Betances you really don't know yet because he hasn't got his velocity up, and he's only thrown 2 innings. In actual games. So, you have to see how much, if he comes to the Yankees and gets maybe 4 or 5 outings, you have to see how he's throwing, his velocity's up. And in the 2 games, he threw 39 pitches in 2 innings. And, that's a lot of pitches.
Yeah. But the one thing is at least we do have some arms coming out of the bullpen with guys like Britton, Canelli, the guy they signed from Colorado, I keep getting his name wrong. Atavia. How do you pronounce his last name?
Atavia.
Yeah, him. They got some arms that can come out of the bullpen. We just don't want to have to use them every game.
Yeah, with the arms they have, a lot of times it can be a 4 or 5 inning game because when you get into the playoffs, you can bring in these guys in the 4th and 5th innings. In the playoff, the 5th to 6th innings is just as important as the 9th inning. So, you can the Yankees can mix and match. They certainly have the arms in the bullpen.
Yeah, and I'm confident with Tanaka, even though he's had an up and down year. He has shown you he brings his A game in the postseason, and if Paxton continues to pitch well, it could be a nice 1-2 punch. And if Severino, it looks like his old self, we could be in pretty good shape in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking all year about getting Severino back and Montgomery and stuff. So now, it's happened, and, we'll have to see how they perform. But, at least things pitching-wise are starting to shape up a little bit.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how the lineup will shake out, though, for the postseason. I'm still not sure what Aaron Boone or the Yankees have in mind and who's going to be on the roster.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's still a couple weeks to go, and there's still plenty of time for a few guys to get hurt. So, yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting decisions. I mean, you want to throw Stanton out there with, not many at-bats. And, I mean, the thing is, if the Yankees don't win the World Series, I mean, there's going to be a lot of questions. If you have a guy like Stanton play and he doesn't perform and they don't win, they'll get criticized. And if he doesn't play and they don't win, you give the guy all this money, he's a great player, and he's sitting on the bench. So it's going to be very interesting.
And Mike Ford's a guy who's been playing really well, and you got to wonder if he's someone that can make the roster, or if they might have to leave him off.
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, I like Ford as a player. He's done a great job with the Yankees. But I think as of now, he'll be off the roster. But like I say, a lot of guys get hurt, so have to wait and see.
Yeah. Anything you're looking forward to this week with the Yankees? Anything you want to see from them?
Well, the big thing is, like we keep saying, I just want to see, all these guys who've coming off the injured list. Montgomery on Sunday. Severino Tuesday. How's CeCe going to do? What's going on with Stanton? So, I mean, these games now are almost like exhibition games, but so that still keeps the interest up, just to see what's going on.
Yeah, and after the Detroit series, 6 of their next 9 games are against the Blue Jays. So they'll have some time to work some kinks out. But I want to bring up Aaron Hicks. I mean, that guy, he just seems to be injury prone.
Yeah, I mean, he had the same trouble with the Twins. I mean, he just can't, he just can't seem to stay on the field. I mean, it's definitely, a big concern, because you got this guy for 7 years. And, how many games is he going to play? I mean, if he can only play 80, 100 games a year, you don't know what to think.
Guys, they apparently Cashman really liked him. He was one of the guys he really wanted from Minnesota. And, I mean, he rewarded him with that 7-year contract. But he has a problem staying on the field. Yeah,
and I mean, if you see him up close, he's a physical specimen. I mean, he's a big guy. He's strong. He's got an outstanding arm. He can, both sides of the plate. He hits the hell out of the ball. But all these injuries. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. And do you know if the Mets are still in postseason? Still got a shot to make the postseason?
Well, they do. I mean, they're hanging by a thread, but hopefully they'll at least finish over 500 and give the Met fans something to look forward to in the coming seasons.
Yeah, I see here. I just pulled up their schedule, their record. They're 2 games out of the wild card. So they still got a shot to make the postseason. It'd be a miracle if they make it.
Well, I hope they do. I mean, it's a great thing for New York if they do. I just like to mention something, Robert. Charlie Silveria, he was the backup catcher for the Yankees in the late 1940s. Through 55, 56. When the Yankees won 5 World Series in a row, he was Yogi Berra's backup, and he passed away the other day.
Oh, did he?
He was 94. He was the last surviving Yankee from the 5 World Series they won from 49 through 1953. And he didn't get to play much because, Yogi, they had Yogi, and Ralph Houck was the third string catcher, and he became the Yankee manager of the 61 Yankees. And there was like 12 players who played on all 5 teams, and Mr. Severino was the last, surviving member. And if you look in the archives on the Comfortably Zone radio network, Ralph, they did a interview with him a few years back. So, I just wanted to mention that, and I'll tell you a Yogi story or a Severino story.
I want to I'm going to love check out that podcast.
Well, he was from San Francisco, Severino, and Gil McDougall come there, Joe DiMaggio. There was a Tony Lazzari. There was a few other guys, and from San Francisco, Gil McDougall. But anyway, after Don Larson's perfect game in the 1956 series, Game 5, Severino went to Yogi, said, "Yogi, can I have a memento of the perfect game?" And Yogi says, "Well, what can I give you? We still got games to play." And Yogi hit a homer in Game 7 to beat the Dodgers. The Yankees won the series that year. Johnny Cooks was the winning pitcher, and it was Jackie Robinson's last game. But Yogi says, "I don't have anything to get. What can I give you?" So what Yogi gave Severino was his jockstrap.
No kidding. Holy shit.
And the story is, Charlie had it bronzed, put it on a plaque, and hung it on his wall. So,
that's great.
So that's that's the souvenir that Yogi gave Charlie for the Larson's perfect game.
Yogi was a character, wasn't he?
Yeah, they were great times. I mean, I don't think you'll ever see a dynasty like that. And there was 12 guys who played on all those 5 championship teams. Yogi was one of them. Scooter, Severino, Rashi, Reynolds, Lopat, Hank Bauer, Gene Woodling. So there was a lot of them, and Charlie was the last one. So that's the end of an era.
Wow. I didn't even know that. That is something. I definitely would like to check out that podcast in the archives. And Yogi, he had what, 10 World Series rings?
Yeah, I mean, as a player, and he had a couple as a coach, and it was just Yogi was on the team from 47 through 64, and they were in the series every year but 3 years. So. That gives you an idea, how great a player he was, and he was a coach on a couple teams. So I don't think you'll ever see anybody like Yogi.
And Elston Howard was also a backup to Yogi, right?
Yeah, Ellie had to play the outfield for a couple of years. Elston was a great player. When you had somebody like Yogi playing, Elston didn't get a chance to play as much as he could have, because Elston could have been a Hall of Famer because that's how good a player he was. But, Yogi used to play almost every day, and they had to put Elston in the outfield, and I don't think Ellie became a regular till he was in his early 30s. So, he lost a lot of time.
Yeah, because my dad, growing up, his 2 favorite players were Mickey Mantle and Elston Howard.
Yeah, Elston, he was the MVP in 1963. And, I remember in 67, on the first day of the season, for opening day at Yankee Stadium, Bill Rohr was pitching a no-hitter in the 9th inning for the Red Sox, and Ellie got a 2-out single to break up the no-hitter. And later in the year, I still have that newspaper clipping, Ellie got traded to the Red Sox.
Oh, that's right.
And he was like heartbroken. He didn't want to go. But he went and, he got the Sox, he got him in the World Series. One of the reasons they got in the World Series, that and Yaz and Jim Lonborg. But, Ellie played a big part in the Red Sox getting in the World Series in 1967, as well as all the success the Yankees had when, Elson was on the team.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, yeah, that had to be heartbreaking to be traded to the Red Sox. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I still got the newspaper clipping. And,
that's cool.
But he was glad he went. He went up there when he did. And Dick Williams was the manager of the Red Sox. And Dick Williams told the pitchers, he said, "Do not shake off Elston Howard. He's forgotten more baseball than you know." So.
Wow. And getting back to the present, Brett Gardner's been swinging a hot bat, or at least a really good bat lately.
Yeah, what has he got now? Like 24 homers?
Yeah, it's like 23 or 24.
Offhand, Robert, you know how many homers the Yankees have this year?
Not offhand, but I know the Twins, I think, broke their record. Yeah,
I mean, I was talking to a guy in spring training. We were trying to figure out, if they get 300 homers this year. I said I don't think they'll quite get 300. Maybe 290 or so. But I mean, they're on the pace to hit 300 home runs.
I know. I think the Yankees set a record in August for most home runs hit in a month. And I know the last time we talked, they were at 253 for the season, I think. But they did set a record.
They had 6 homers, and I know it's crazy.
I mean, the balls are just flying out of the park. I mean, the Twins, they're hitting home runs left and right, and I think they broke the Yankees record from last year.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot more coming because there's still like 15 games left.
Yeah. And you want to do a little recap of the New York Giants opening week 1 performance? You want
Robert,
let me rant a little bit?
Yeah, I only seen the highlights, and it just seemed like Dallas receivers were running wild. They were wide open, and the defense was terrible. And now you can rant all you want. Go ahead.
Okay. Before I begin my rant on the Giants, the Yankees have 276 home runs on the year. Well, 277 now since Judge hit one in the first inning. So there's a chance they could hit 300 this year still. Yeah.
Okay, Robert. Go with the Giants.
Well, I was excited for this game. I thought, the Giants' first 4 games are winnable games. I thought they could steal a victory from the Cowboys. The Giants, they get the ball, they march right down the field. Barkley had a nice 59-yard run. Eli Manning threw an easy touchdown pass to Evan Ingram in the end zone to give the Giants a 7-0 lead, and I thought, great, our offense looks great. We're going to put up points, and then all of a sudden, next thing I know, it's 21-7 Cowboys, and it didn't look like it was going to end anytime soon. I mean, they were just torching the Giants' defense. I mean, the receivers were just wide open. I mean, it's as if the Giants' corners were running away from the receivers instead of trying to stay with them. I just couldn't get over it, how bad the Giants' defense looked. And Dak Prescott, the Cowboys quarterback, he was the least pressured quarterback in week 1. The Giants got no pressure on him whatsoever. He threw for over 400 yards. I think he had 4 or 5 touchdown passes. I mean, he looked like the Giants defense allowed him to look like Johnny Unitas reincarnated, but even better. I mean, it was just a brutal game to watch. I mean, defensively, it was just bad.
Yeah, and I mean, they got off to a great start. I mean, and it just seemed like they abandoned the running game, the Giants, and the Dallas scored like 5 possessions in a row, and they didn't do anything to stop them. They couldn't adjust.
No, and the one way to keep an offense off the field is by controlling the clock and running the football. And Saquon Barkley only had 11 carries. I mean, he got 120 yards with those 11 carries, but he's supposed to be the guy the offense runs through, and they just completely abandoned the run game, and I just don't understand why. I mean, there's two plays in particular, a third down and one, where they had Eli roll out, and it looked like the Cowboys, it looked like they knew exactly what was coming, and of course, the attempt failed. Fourth and one, the same thing. They had Eli roll out again. It failed. And when you have third and short like that, and you got one of the best, if not the best running back in the league, you give him the football. I just didn't understand the play calling and the game plan for the Giants offensively. I mean, it is mind-boggling. I mean, it better get better than this, because Pat Shermer's got 2 more years on his contract, but I mean, so far I have not been impressed with him. His play calling, even last year, Odell Beckham Jr. questioned his play calling, and they traded Odell in the off season. But you know, after game one, I mean, the play calling was just it was atrocious. It was mind-boggling, and a lot of people on social media, ex-players and even some beat writers were wondering, why isn't Saquon Barkley getting the ball? Why aren't the Giants running the ball? And I mean, it was aggravating watching it, especially defensively. Like you said, Cowboys scored 5 touchdowns in their first 6 possessions. I mean, and it was easy.
Well, it just looked to me like when Eli, and the one when he rolled out on 4th and 1, there was no Giant on that side of the field.
No, there wasn't. And then there was one on the 3rd and 1. There was someone open about 15 yards downfield, but Eli had a defender right on him, and he would have had to have thrown across his body while falling backwards. And Eli got torched on social media about not throwing the football. And one guy who came to his defense was Carl Banks, giving everyone a lesson in physics. I mean, for a quarterback to throw across his body while falling backwards, that's 15 yards downfield. The chances are it's going to get intercepted or at least knocked down. I mean, it would have been a bad throw, but yet Eli nonetheless was crucified for it. And, I mean, overall, Eli had a good game. He completed 68% of his passes for over 300 yards and a touchdown. And the Giants were able to move the ball through the air. They just weren't able to punch it in the end zone enough times.
Well, it just seems to me like, you know, somebody on the outside looking in, it's almost like they want Jones to be the quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, because it's the play calling was just it was confusing. It was almost, I don't want to say sabotaging Eli, but I mean, Eli's never been the most mobile quarterback, and to have him rolling out on plays like on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 makes no sense. Not when you have a running back like Barkley. And also Eli, their number 1 receiver, Golden Tate, is serving a 4-game suspension, and his number 2 receiver, Sterling Shepard, suffered a concussion in the game, and his only other really weapon is the tight end, Evan Ingram. But Evan Ingram's someone who can only catch the ball if you put it right in his hands, because he his rookie year led the NFL in drop passes among tight ends, and last year he had some crucial drops, and his first 2 years in the league, he's yet to make a tough catch. So, I mean, even though their tight end is athletically gifted, he hasn't been what everyone thought he would be. And I just feel a little bit bad for Eli, because he's playing shorthanded right now at the moment offensively, with some of his receivers not being out there on the field.
Yeah, I mean, this season could get ugly pretty quick, because, that defense looks, like a sieve.
Yeah, I mean, Gettleman decided to draft a lot of corners, a lot of secondary men in the secondary, thinking it would help with the pass rush. Figuring if it would provide more coverage sacks. But these young guys the Cowboys were even saying on the sideline they have no clue what they're doing back there, and I think a lot of the young guys are, they're not up to speed yet on this defense, and if that's the case, it could be a long year defensively, especially for the secondary.
Well, it just seemed to me on a few of the touchdown passes. I mean, if you look at the lowlights. I mean, the receivers were open in the middle of the field, like for the touchdown, and there was nobody like even in the area. It's like they were in a zone or something, and there was nobody covering the guys coming down the middle.
That was one of their problems last year was they were attacked over the middle a lot last year. I mean, and they couldn't stop anyone, and especially tight ends. And the Cowboys, they attacked them right down the middle of the field, especially deep. And it was really hard to watch as a Giants fan. I mean, there were some players who were running. There was a lot of miscommunication. I mean, it was bad. I mean, the defense is going to be brutal this year. I mean, they can't rush the quarterback. Their linebacking core is basically non-existent, and their secondary is full of a lot of young kids, a lot of rookies.
Yeah, it seems like once the Dallas receivers got past, the defensive backs, there was nobody. There was nobody helping out or anything. There was no linebackers back there. There was nothing. It was just basically one-on-one coverage. And, they kept on, getting beat.
Yeah, it's like last year the tight ends were killing them over the middle. The linebackers, when they're playing zone, supposed to pick them up and then pass them off to the safety. But linebackers never picked them up, and Landon Collins got beat a lot last year over the middle because he had no help. And it looks like the same thing is happening again this year, at least from what I saw in Game 1. I mean, they got a lot of holes on defense, and the only thing I can think of is the Giants are going to have a lot of cap space next year, and I think, they drafted their quarterback, and I think after this season they're going to go out and buy defense for next year.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot of the first games were kind of ragged. I think because a lot of these teams, they can't practice as much as they used to. It just seems like they're out of sync. I mean, it just seems to be no continuity on the players' part.
Yeah, I mean, most of the starters this preseason did not play, and the NFL they want to go to like an 18-game schedule and only play 2 preseason games because they're losing money on these preseason games because no one wants to watch them because it's all a bunch of backups playing. And so when the regular season starts, a lot of these players really haven't played in any games, and it takes them a couple of weeks before they're finally, in football shape. I mean, you really don't know what kind of team you have until like week 4 or 5. And by then you could be out of the playoffs if you're 0-3 or 0-4 or 1-3. I mean,
well, I think you're going to see that, Robert, because I remember when I was growing up, they used to play 6 preseason games.
Yeah.
And 14 games. Now they got 4 and 16. So I think it's just a matter of time before you'll see 2 and 18. So.
Yeah, and back then they took those preseason games serious.
Yeah, I mean, what they used to do is they would play, all over the country and stuff, in areas that didn't have pro football. So they would, they would try to win them. I mean, it was the number one priority, but, you wanted to win those games. And when they got in the season, they had already played like 6 games. And, I mean, the regulars played a lot. Yeah,
I mean, Eli Manning this preseason only played in 3 series. That was it. It was the least amount of time he ever played in the preseason. They played Daniel Jones, a rookie, a considerable amount of time, where Eli only played in 3 series.
Yeah, that's not nearly enough time to get ready, and they worry about injuries. So, but I think that's coming shortly, an 18-game season. Everyone
expects Eli to be benched at some point. A lot of people think it'd be during their bye week, which is a week 11. But if the Giants' defense continues to be as bad as it were against Dallas, they might put Eli on the bench sooner just to get the rookie more experience and more games this year, so he's more ready and prepared next year. And if that's the case, I feel bad for Eli Manning.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to play the guy, I mean, you just should have let him go somewhere else, and just start the rookie. Because this could turn into a 3-4 win season, very quickly.
And I mean, like I said, he completed 68% of his passes. I mean, Eli's going to play good football. He's going to play well, but it doesn't matter if the defense keeps giving up more points than the Giants can score. There's really no point to play Eli if it's just going to be another losing season. I think hopefully if they do bench him early, hopefully they do trade him. I mean, because the Colts, they lost Andrew Luck, retired out of nowhere, so the Colts really don't have a franchise quarterback anymore. And it'd be nice to see Eli at least go to a good team that can compete for a division title, because he wants to play a couple more years. I mean, he looks great. Which is, I'm baffled why they drafted a quarterback, because I thought Eli at least has a couple more years in him.
Well, it looks like, the writing's on the wall. So I think at some point, like you were saying, we'll see Jones in there sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping they beat Buffalo this Sunday, and then they go down to Tampa week 3, and they beat Tampa last year, but it was a shootout. The defense last year tried their hardest to give that game away. But, hopefully they can win the next 2-3 games. They play Buffalo, Tampa, and then Washington. They're all winnable games, so hopefully they can at least win two out of 3 of them, or at least all 3. And Eli can keep his job for a little bit longer.
Well, I hope so, because I've always liked the Giants, and Eli's been a great player for the team, and it seems like he deserves a better fate.
Yeah, and this narrative of him being done, it's just amazing how the fans have turned on him, and now the beat writers also have turned on him, and their struggles have not been Eli Manning's fault. I mean, he's put up good numbers his whole career. I mean, he's top 10 in completions, passing yards, touchdowns, wins, comebacks. I mean, he's top 10 all time in the NFL. I mean, you don't do that if you're not a great quarterback.
Well, quarterback controversy sells papers, and a quarterback, when you win, they get more credit than they probably deserve, and when they lose, they get more blame than they probably deserve. So it just comes with the territory.
Yeah, and I hope this Daniel Jones kid is the real deal, because you draft a kid that high, and if he doesn't pan out, then your franchise is pretty much struggling for the next 5 years or so. It'll set your franchise back if you pick the wrong quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, we have that down here with the Bucks, with Winston and stuff, and they're going nowhere either.
Yeah, I was really high on Winston coming out of college. I really liked his leadership ability. I thought he had a great arm, but he's a little turnover prone. If you could just cut those turnovers down, he'd be something special down there. I'm hoping. Bruce Arians is the head coach, and he does a good job with the offense. So hopefully Winston has a really good year this year.
Well, Winston's got all the talent in the world, but the thing is, he still makes rookie mistakes. I mean, he made some throws last week that, were just awful. So, the Bucks could be in for another long season too.
Yeah, and I just, as a Giants fan, it's just, Eli was drafted with Ben Roethlisberger and Phillip Rivers, and Big Ben, I think, got a 2-year extension, and I think San Diego or Los Angeles, the Chargers, they're working on an extension with Rivers, and it blows my mind that they're pushing Eli out, and when it's clear, at least to me, that Eli can still play football. It's just been the team around him that hasn't been good.
Well, he's probably better off at this point, in the next couple of weeks if they don't win some games, going somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, and I had a post on Facebook, and some guy said Eli Manning has been awful the last 5 years. And in 2014, he threw over 4,000 yards with 30 touchdowns. In 2015, he threw for over 4,000 yards with 35 touchdowns, which was second in the NFL. And then in 2016, they went to the playoffs, and Eli Manning was the only one on offense to show up. His receivers were dropping passes left and right. I think he had 12 dropped passes in that playoff game, including 2 that would have been touchdowns. And they should have been up at halftime in that game by 2 scores. And in 2017, the team was just riddled with injuries on offense. Manning was throwing to practice squad receivers. And then last year, new coach, the offensive line was horrible the first 8 games of the season. Eli was sacked 31 times through the first 8 games. And his career high in sacks prior to last year was 39 in 2013, and he almost matched that through the first 8 games of last year. And he was also sacked 14 times in 2.5 seconds or less, which led the NFL, which meant Eli barely had time to even plant his back foot on a 3-step drop back before he had pressure on him. So, I mean, he's been, he's had a bad team around him. And so, I mean, that's why this narrative of him being done just blows my mind and angers me at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a great player for that franchise and, a possible Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and the one thing about him is all the years he's never once ever thrown a player, coach, anyone under the bus. He's always taken accountability, whether it was his fault or not. I mean, he's just been a class act his whole career and a true professional. And it's just a shame to see the fans turn on him like the way they have.
Yeah, well, the New York fans, if they're on your side, it's great. But if they turn against you, it can get pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Robert, we were talking earlier. I wondered why they took Happ out of the Yankee game.
Yeah.
He pitched 4 2/3. He had, he was pitching. He's pitching a good game. He has elbow tendonitis.
Oh, that's not good.
Some sort of tendonitis in his pitching arm. So the injuries can continue with.
Yeah. I mean, wow. I mean, they've had literally over 30 players on the DL this year. Something.
Yeah,
I mean, easy.
Yeah, it's been at least I think it's 31 now. I think Happ might just miss the start, but so it just it just never ends. And I mean, I don't know. I hope the Yankees win the series because the Jets don't look good, and the hockey season's starting shortly, and then the Knicks are starting, so that's going to be a disaster. So
yeah,
I just hope the Yankees and the Mets get in the playoffs.
yeah. I mean, New York really does. They need both New York teams in the playoffs this year, I think.
Well, I hope the Mets, get in because they've had a lot of lean years, so hopefully they'll play good the last couple of weeks.
And that rookie they have, Pete Alonso, I'm surprised he's not mentioned more. I mean, he's got over 40 home runs on the year, something like that. I mean, breaking records.
46.
Yeah,
he's got 46.
I mean, it's just amazing what he's done. And they got another guy, J.D. Davis and Jeff McNeil. I mean, they got some good players on that team.
Well, they got some pitching, so hopefully they can, pick it up in the last 2 weeks and, maybe sneak into a wild card spot.
Yeah, and the Yankees were in the top of the 4th. We're winning 3-0, so CeCe's pitched 3 shutout innings so far.
Well, good. I hope he can right the ship and win a few games before he calls it a career.
Yeah, and it's been a great career. I mean, over 3,000 strikeouts, over 250 wins. He's got around 270 wins, right? Somewhere around there.
He's got 251. His last dominant season was like 2011, 2012. He pitched pretty well, but the last 7 or 8 years he's had some off seasons. He's been injured. He's had a couple good seasons, but he's nothing like he was when he was maybe the best pitcher in the game years ago.
And next week when we talk, pulling up the schedule here, we'll be playing. Was it Toronto? Yeah, we'll be playing Toronto. So we'll have an idea how Severino did.
Montgomery Sunday, Severino Tuesday. We'll see Betances. They're talking Stanton coming back. So there'll be a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and hopefully it's all good. Yeah.
Well, with the Yankees, even the bad news turns out good so far. So we'll have to see how it continues.
And hopefully Encarnacion, the oblique, his oblique's not too serious. Hopefully he'll just miss a couple games, put him on the 10-day IL or something, because he is a good bat to have in the middle of that lineup.
Yeah, I mean he's played excellent since he come back from the injury. So we'll see how it pans out, Robert. We'll know more in a week or so.
Yeah. Well, this is fun, Jack. Same time next week?
Yep, sounds good, Robert. And go Yankees, and I hope the Giants play well Sunday.
So do I. All right, Jack, and everyone out there, have a good one.
The proceeding has been a comfortably zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.